talk about the literacy. We are very glad that we have been joined by one of the personality who's an educationist himself, and he wants to unroll the conversation on how to impart the critical thinking skills, especially to our younger students, because a lot of students will acquire the education, are going into the fields that might not even exist today, but how to make sure that we are preparing for the future, which has dominated by the artificial intelligence and other critical thinking skills. Why don't you take the lead, Muzammil, and introduce our guest?
Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Burair bin Nazir. We have with us a person who is at the center of the field of education, and this is important because our children are our future, and strong nations are built on the backs of strong youth. So we are going to get right into it regarding what is important, what is not, and how
to inculcate the critical thinking skills. So Burair, let's have this very interesting conversation. How do you think our education system is preparing the students for the future, which will be dominated by the artificial intelligence?
Basically, when we talk about the current education system, there is a lot of domain space available for improvement. Currently, the system, especially, there is a wide difference between the public sector and the private sector education systems. Sure. The private sector education systems definitely do have more or a head start in compared to the public sector ones while working on things such as AI, ChatGPT, Canva, or basically bringing the children to the level where they are able to bring financial independence in their lives, and they are able, given that skill set which enables them with the 21st century skills, so that they are able to go out in the market and create not only employment for themselves but also be entrepreneurs in the market.
Right.
Right. So sir, when we talk about education for all, it's in venture, and I think a lot of younger kids, I am witnessing this surging trend in them that they're diagnosed with autism spectrum, with what do you call dyslexia, and all of these neurodegenerative conditions, right? So do you think our education system is vibrant enough to absorb these kids which have different sort of conditions, and obviously they need different sort of time and attention, especially from the teachers? So is our education system inclusive enough?
Right now, I think we face a bit of a challenge that what you're talking about is customized education or trainings or inculcation of different lessons according to the particular individuals that are on stage with their different challenges. Right now, we are in a state across the country where we have very standard set patterns that we follow, and there is a need for bringing diversity into it. Bringing differently enabled children's solution, you need to bring on course different modules that enable that. Right. For example, even if we're talking about digital skills or we're talking about the standard education modules, right now across the board from preschools to higher grades, they're all talking about following a standard set pattern. And unfortunately, even that right now, even for the mainstream students, there is a lot of space for improvement. And talking about inclusivity or talking about children with special needs, be it cognitive or physical or any other nature, you feel that they do get left out. There are specialized schools for them, yes, but bringing them to the mainstream, it is much more difficult. So to bring a harmony into the two systems, there's a lot more space to work to be done.
Do you think this is where we face the lack of integrating such people into the society as adults?
Yes, I think generally speaking, as a society, we are not very receptive of differently enabled people. Right. And when we talk about bringing them into the mainstream and bringing them into the main aura of people who are for employment, for business purposes or for employment purposes, they are right now not enabled. Yes, unfortunately or fortunately, we have a quota system in place, especially in certain state organizations. But when we talk about the private sector, it is a nice thing to say that we are enabled and we have, let's say, for example, somebody who is sitting on a wheelchair, we have ramps available for them. But as soon as they cross the ramp and get inside the particular building, the rest of the services are not there.
And I think they're also more focusing on the visible disability. For example, these cognitive disabilities, they're not very visible. Yes. When they're invisible, so it's very difficult to cater to them. And I think we need to have this more discussion. But sir, very quickly, I would like to ask you, because you are very passionate about talking about how post-COVID education systems are incorporating like more digital or e-learning, right? So there are lots of problems that are also occurring in this mode of learning because teacher is not present, you cannot see the body language of the child. What do you have to say as an educationist on it?
You're very right. and this problem of bringing the digital system or using it to pass on education is not only actually just post-COVID, but unfortunately with the current scenario of the different political scenarios that come up, the strikes that keep happening, a lot of holidays or day offs are being given to children, and the children are losing out work days of classroom time. So the digital solution is required because physical presence at the institute has become more and more difficult with the prevailing economic and political situation. But the challenge that we face is, one, the tutors or the teachers themselves are not enabled.
Yes.
Two, the quality of connections or internet connectivity is not the same across the board in the nation.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So especially there's a very big divide between the urban and rural differentiation. Even within urban centers,
Digital divide, yeah.
yeah, there is a physical divide as well as there is a connectivity divide.
True.
So, and again, when you talk about the different segments of society, the upper echelon of the society have more digital tools. Their kids will have two
More
or three different
sophisticated
tools.
ones, yeah, yeah.
They will have a laptop,
Different
they will have a
sort of
tab.
an access to all
Yeah,
of these
their
services.
access to these physical
Yes.
products is different. Similarly, somebody from the lower end, or let's say SEC D or E background, who is barely going to school,
Yes.
they will not have a smartphone at
No
their availability.
laptops, lesser
Their parents will
connectivity.
barely maybe have one.
True, true.
Okay, and that too not the best one, or they may not have the data package available. So how is he going to utilize digital training?
Now, talking about all of these electronic resources, AI and other things, and the technology that is being incorporated and used, as you just mentioned, how do you think that the disconnect with the traditional way of learning things, going to libraries, reading hard books on pages, that effort that students used to put in? Back in my day, I didn't have AI. Back when I was in school, we had to go to a library, search through sections, pull books out and read from them. That exercise, how do you think that is impacting the memory and the grit inside of the
Man,
students?
how old are you? I mean, we did had
I'm
the test
34.
okay. Okay, you're talking about you're living in a different era, but that was on a lighter note. Please go ahead.
As you very rightly pointed out, this actually reflects on what you're saying is a reflection of what society is happening. As a society, we've turned into people who are shortcut hunters. And same is happening in our education system as well, that you don't want to do a research paper, you go on ChatGPT and generate your research paper. Everybody is making a carbon copy. And then now there are
Exactly.
tools available to check for plagiarism.
Yes.
And then how,
I
and
think
then
naked
further
eye is
tools
also a
available,
tool
how to
available.
cheat that
Evade.
plagiarism checking tool. So, but
Yes.
what is important is in this current day and age is that you cannot say a tool is good or bad. It is how you use it,
How
right?
you use it, yes.
And secondly, with the amount of information or the access of information that we have available, the most important part is teaching your students or teaching the children or the people in society how to use that tool efficiently, how to filter through the amount of information that they're getting, what is good content, what is bad content, what is actual genuine content. Just like in journalism, we talk about there is journalism where there's a lot of research done, a lot of background work done, and then there is the hot gossipy journalism where you grab
Right.
something and you start quoting it. So similarly, in education, you need to have a clear definition of how to get that information. You have a lot of information available, how to filter it, how to summarize it, and these tools make that available. It is totally dependent on, and now what the new current systems need to work on. For example, I know of a few systems, I will not take names, who are now working on giving ability of using Canva to third grade students, fourth
Wow.
grade students, so that they start designing and creating tools and information and use how to use ChatGPT.
Right.
ChatGPT output is dependent on what
Prompt
kind of
engineering,
prompting that
basically.
you put.
Yes.
So giving them the ability set to put the right kind of prompts, to put the right kind of information, and using it for a positive resource activity.
Right, and thank you so much, sir, for coming here, for fostering this conversation regarding enhancing the creativity of the child, and not just the creativity but also the critical thinking skills. It's essential that we talk on the education system and how there's a dire need to inculcate the values in our students that will be more helpful to them in this very competitive and a fastly changing world. Once again, thank you so much, Burer sir, for
Thank you,
coming
sir.
here, for having this wonderful cross-pollination of ideas. So with that, we are wrapping up our segment. Until next time, it's a goodbye, Allah Hafiz, and good morning.
Good morning.